interesting conversation with a friend of mine a while back. I've known the guy for quite a while. He's spiritual and is a genuinely nice, caring, good person. I'm a bit ashamed to say, however, that I never really asked him about his perspective on spiritual stuff before, even though I've been pretty open about my own viewpoint. It's not that I didn't care. I guess I just figured if he wanted to share, he'd bring it up without my asking. Lesson learned. Anyway, it turns out that among other things, the spiritual system he subscribes to sees Jesus as one of many of a long line of prophets throughout time. We talked a little bit about that and why he sees it that way. He's got a very positive view of Jesus and his teachings. Even so, my friend doesn't see Jesus as any more authoritative than all of the other prophets that he looks to for his spiritual insight. Then I asked him a question that I think gets to the crux of the matter. How do you view the resurrection of Jesus? That's a critical question because everything that makes up Christianity hinges on the resurrection of Jesus. Jesus claimed to be God. He did a bunch of miracles to validate that claim, but other people have done and still do miracles even though they're not God. However, those other people don't predict that they'll be raised from the dead, then die, and actually get resurrected. Jesus predicted he would. So if he wasn't resurrected, then it completely discredits everything he said and stood for. If the resurrection of Jesus didn't happen, then all of Christianity is nothing more than a useless list of rules to live by. It reduces Jesus to a quaint figure from a small, out-of-the-way part of the world at an obscure time in history. On the other hand, if Jesus really was raised from the dead, then that changes everything. If the resurrection really happened the way it is depicted in the Bible, then it validates everything that Jesus said and did. That very act gives Jesus the authority and demonstrates his power in a way that nothing else could. The Apostle Paul placed so much importance on the issue of the resurrection that he said it's the one thing that has to be believed to get into right standing with God. If you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is by believing in your heart that you're made right with God, and it is by openly declaring your faith that you are saved. Obviously, what we believe about the resurrection of Jesus is pretty important. As a side note, the church, at least throughout most of America it seems, puts a huge emphasis on the confess with your mouth part of the whole thing. I think too often it even goes to the point of almost completely neglecting the believe in your heart part. The effect is that we have tons of folks who call themselves Christians and who are saved, but they've not been made right with God. My take is that this is a big reason why so much of modern Christianity has been so ineffective at changing lives anymore. But I digress. Fortunately for my friend and I, even though we are now in very different places at the moment, our spiritual journeys are both motivated by a strong desire to know the truth. Because of that, I am confident that we'll both end up in the same place eventually. By that I mean he will likely end up believing fully in Jesus because Jesus is truth personified. He said so himself. Jesus said to him, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Therefore, everyone who sincerely is looking for the truth is in reality looking to meet Jesus. Truth is a person, and his name is Jesus. Ultimately, there's no way to prove that the resurrection really happened or didn't happen. Since none of us were actually there, all we can do is evaluate the evidence and make a choice to believe or disbelieve based on that evidence. No matter how much evidence we uncover, it never gets us all the way there. There will always be a measure of faith mixed in. The Bible says it this way. And it is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. So the question is this: What do you believe about the resurrection of Jesus Christ?